Morning, everybody. Morning, Jan. Can you hear me now? Because sounds on this side. Just give me an indication. Right, morning, everybody. We haven't started anything yet, so we haven't missed anything. How's the vibe at the moment? How's the Friday morning vibe? Everybody good? Hang in there for a couple more hours, then it's weekend. Just hang in for a couple more hours. You should all be fine. Good. Right. What do you want to learn today? What do you want to talk about today? Let's make it an open conversation. What do you want to talk about today? I know what we can talk about. I know what we are required to talk about, but what's on your minds? What do you want to talk about? What does your program say? What do we have to talk about? Of course, we are doing pricing, Candice. Thank you very much. My apologies. I've had a bug in my throat all morning. I think it's just immune system dropping with the changing climate, temperatures dropping in Cape Town, and looks as if it's going to be a wet weekend, but I'm pretty sure we'll cope with all of that. I understand what you're saying. Yes, I would like to talk about anything but school as well, but let's get the formalities out the way. We are making good time. I have looked at the timetable again last night, the module schedule. We'll finish the work well in time, leaving us with, I think, sufficient and very important time for revision. And obviously, as I suggested at our last session on Wednesday, when we went over the memo of your formal test, there will be proper feedback once everything has been moderated and the results are available. But yeah, for the moment, unfortunately, we cannot escape reality, and reality indicates to us, like Candice has confirmed, that we have to look at one of the more important and very often in the mind of the consumer, the most important determining factor before they make a final decision as to buying or not buying a product, and that is the pricing. But we are going to be looking at pricing in a number of ways. Obviously, we need to know what price is, but more importantly, we're looking at it from a marketer's point of view or a business point of view. How do you determine the correct price for a product? Because very often businesses realize too late that they have not priced the product correctly. And although from our previous chapters we have done proper segmentation, we've identified the criteria for the target markets that we want to target to achieve our goals. We're communicating with our customers, but one very important aspect is still troublesome to them, and that is that the price of the product is not one that they are comfortable with. So for us to be able to determine the correct price, we have to identify what price is, and basically in the most simplest terms. And please, I would like your own opinions as well. When I say price, what is price? Well, so that's the tag on the item that tells you what it costs. Yes, that's the what's on the label, what's on the product, that indicates to you what the company wants you to pay them and you as a customer now have to decide, do I think that's a fair price? Does it fit into my budget? And however, because we obviously are now going to engage in an exchange transaction. If we are agree that the price is fine, and obviously when it's a cheaper sort of daily commodity that we use, like bread and milk and cool drinks and snacks, then we're not going to negotiate the price. When you get to the door, you'll pay the price that was advertised, and an exchange of monetary values happen. You getting the product that you want, and in exchange, you are paying by handing over your money to whoever receives it on behalf of the company, and then hopefully you will benefit from having the product, because it will satisfy your need, and the company's needs are satisfied too, because they have sold another item which contributes towards their revenue, and hopefully a proper profit as well. Anybody else? Price. How important, anybody can share with me, how important is price in your opinion as a consumer? Because I know there are some things that you pay for yourself, and there are some things that if you're still, maybe like probably the majority of us still living with our parents, then there are things that they're responsible for and pay. How important is price to you in buying normal day-to-day expenses that for your own consumption and need satisfaction? Money betting, apparently nobody, price is not an issue for you. How important is price for you? Anybody? I'd like your opinions on what value you put on the price of a product. Because remember, marketers, and you are all future marketers. After graduation, you'll be marketers. You'll be entering careers of a marketing career at businesses. You also still remain a consumer. So you're going to find yourself on both ends of both ends of a transaction. But I think you're it's very true, yes. I think there's a lot of different perceptions, and that's the reason why I wanted us to engage in this discussion. Yes, price is not an issue if you have the money, and if the item that you want is something that you would value. If you really want something badly, price is not necessarily not an issue, but price it will always remain one. But because you see the value of getting it, you would engage in a transaction. If you have a splitting headache and it's been bothering you for a number of hours now, your purchase, whatever, it's almost as if whatever, you are still going to shop around because you have your preferred brand of headache tablets that you use and that you know works for you. But you're not going to quibble about the price. You're going to buy it because you want to get rid of your headache. So your circumstances definitely affect it as well. And then, as Duncan said, yes, if the quality, you're prepared to pay a higher price, and the perception is there that something that is more expensive is necessarily of a better quality as well. That's common practice in a common assumption in the world out there, that people do believe that something that's more expensive is probably more of a higher quality as well. But yeah, I think price is something that's never excluded from a conversation. But again, it's like some of you have indicated now to me, it depends on how important the product is to you, how desperately you need to satisfy that need, and And alternatively also, am I getting value for money? Am I getting a quality product for the price I'm paying? Those are the things that the consumer asks. Before we continue to see how we can navigate through the process of determining what would be a suggested or a good price for a particular product, let's look at the different terminologies related to price. Price, as I said, is the numbers that you find on the shelves and on a particular item on the tag. But when you're borrowing money from a bank, they're not talking prices; they're talking different rates. And there we refer to in that particular environment, price. The term that is used for the price of the product is the interest. The interest that you'll receive if you're investing, the interest that you'll pay if you're borrowing. When you're hiring equipment, you're paying rent. When you're using certain public roads, you're paying a toll fee. I know that is a interesting topic for many consumers who travel a lot. And then when you go into the doctor or attorney, you're paying a fee or a retainer. So it's different terminology. If you're getting into a taxi or Uber, you're paying a fare. And the monetary exchange that happens between you and your employer for the work that you do during a month, it's called a salary. Those are all forms of prices that's put on a particular event or particular activity or particular item or product. It's just different terminology that's used in different industries. Anybody who wants to contribute at any point is more than welcome to just unmute yourself and jump in. Before we quickly on the next slide go through the different steps that we'll individually now look at during the rest of the session, and it starts with identifying your pricing constraints and objectives. Obviously, you don't know at the end when you have to evaluate if your price is the correct one or not. If you do not have an objective at the start that you have set out to achieve, then it's very difficult to evaluate the whole process. Will I ask you to name the different steps in the price setting process? Probably not, but it's good to know it anyway. It's more important to me that you understand what each of the concepts mean. The next step would be to identify your pricing objectives, then estimate the demand, see what the supply is like, and what revenue you want to achieve. Determine costs, volume and profit relationships. Set an appropriate price. Set the quoted or a list price. Make your adjustments. Adjust any adjustments that's necessary. And then you determine the final price. But let's look at each of these individually because it will start making more sense to you. Right, the first step would obviously be to determine what your pricing constraints are. Now, pricing constraints is anything that impacts on your price, on setting the price. It could be internal, it could be external. Your internal components is determined by a few factors. Firstly, obviously the cost of developing the product within the service, the cost of manufacturing it. So cost is obviously an internal factor that you can control because you are the company who's producing the product. What your organizational structure looks like and what your business model is, that will determine what your financial objectives are that you want to achieve. It can be reflected in revenue, but then also maybe in a percentage in market growth. It depends, again, as we said here, what your business model is. Again, like all the other previous chapters, when it's internal factors, it's things that we have some control over. When you're producing a product, the product life cycle, what particular stage in the product life cycle we find ourselves. Remember from a previous chapter when we went through the different stages. that initiation phase or introduction phase, then it's growth, and then it becomes maturity, and then you have either a decline where you have to decide to renew the revive the product by adding more features and extending its life expectancy, or just drop the product because it's obsolete, or there are better alternatives available. Completely discontinue that particular product, take it over out of your product range or product mix. Those are all things that you can control, but there's a cost involved. The cost, obviously, when you're in your initial phases of your product life cycle is more, because you're still starting, you're introducing the product, you're spending a lot on the marketing of the product, to communicate with your potential market. And sales are obviously slow, and it picks up as people become more familiar with the product, and they realize that it's a good value for money alternative. So the different phases have different costs involved, and those are all aspects that impact does impact and can restrain your pricing strategy. But we also cannot exclude any external factors. Sometimes when you register a new product and you start manufacturing a new product, there are certain legal obligations and considerations, and that usually comes at a cost. To register the product, to patent the product, make sure that that you have the copyright and everything that protects the product, depending on what type of product it is. There are some ethical considerations. I know that sometimes it happened in South Africa. It was a concern in 2010 when we hosted the Soccer World Cup, and FIFA was quite worried, because a lot of local businesses saw this as an opportunity to inflate their prices because of the amount of overseas tourists that would visit to support the tournament. So it's sometimes that you have to be, some businesses obviously just said, you know what, this is an opportunity. It's maybe in most businesses life cycle, it's probably a once in a lifetime opportunity, so we're going to cash in. Others said, you know what, we have some ethical considerations and boundaries that we are not prepared to cross. I sometimes feel that we definitely, especially in the Western Cape, the Cape Town area, and surrounds the winelands, that there are maybe sometimes two types of prices. There's a tourist price, and then there's also a sort of a local price. Obviously, people need to be very wary of that, and that's basically where the ethical issue comes in for businesses. Some just don't care, and the others obviously are very conscious of that fact. What's the prices that your competitors are charging for products that's similar to the ones that you are going to send out into the market? That's usually a good indication of because we'll see later on there are different pricing strategies. Obviously, are you going to go up, directly confront your competitors? Are you going to have a price that's cheaper than theirs? Are you going to have a price that's slightly more expensive than theirs? And how you justify it? Very important. It's a factor that you have to consider, because you can't just suck a number out of your thumb and say, listen, this sounds like a good price. These factors need to be considered, and then obviously some customers are more sensitive towards price increases. We will have a look at and later on when we cover the demand and supply issues. Sometimes people are very some consumers are more sensitive to price increases. They will basically just not stop buying a particular product if their budget doesn't allow it, when the prices increase beyond a certain level. We do, however, also realize that the relationship between what you earn and what the value of products out there are not necessarily growing at the same rate, but then there is a relationship between them, and that's something that we need to consider. I think if I stuck to what I originally said 25 years ago, I think it was 25 years ago, it could even be longer, when I bought a vehicle and I said, never in my life am I going to pay more than a certain amount for a vehicle. And then I realized very soon afterwards that maybe that's not a statement that I will be able to honor, because of the increase in car prices. There's vehicles that I don't know. I mean, it's very seldom nowadays you find a vehicle that is affordable. I was almost about to say, especially if it's a new vehicle. But I think in general, one of the most important external factors that we have to always consider when we are in the process of determining the correct price for our product is the general economic conditions. Currently, we find ourselves very much in the middle of a very difficult economic climate. Some people refer to it as a recession, and it's global. Some of it is pre-COVID, or actually already present before pre-COVID. It was probably just fast-tracked as a result of COVID. Some is as a result of COVID, and it's definitely yeah. I realized again this morning when I came into work. I was listening on the radio because they were discussing the fact that Cape Town was recipient of another award, and that was that they have been rated as the third best city in the world when it comes to not just creativity, but the fact that opportunities that they create for entrepreneurs. I think we discussed earlier on in previous chapters how difficult it is in South Africa to register a business, and that's just a process that it takes for you to actually open a business, but it doesn't mean that we do not have opportunities. And I think, yeah, the stats that they quoted were indicated that I think just pre-COVID in 2019, I think just in Cape Town metropole alone, more than 377,000 businesses opened. And they actually, some people phoned in who did open, who were one of those businesses that opened. Very often it was a question of a sideline business to complement your income because, or supplement your income because people were struggling to get past just on their salaries. But yeah, and some of them who phoned in actually indicated that they had to close since since they've opened in 2019 because of what happened with the pandemic in 2020. So the general economic condition is very much a huge determining factor, because you have to pitch a price that is affordable to customers, but you also still have to fulfill your bottom line, and that is to generate an income, a revenue, and make a small profit. I think we all realize that businesses had to adjust those financial objectives that they have set themselves as a result of what happened. Yeah, there's just not enough money out there for consumers to spend like they have in the past, and those are the things that obviously, yeah, become very important and a huge influencing factor when you sit down to determine the price of a product. Furthermore, the objectives that you set as a next step in the whole process of determining a price for your product is that there are so many different approaches that you can take. We are only going to address the three on the screen, which are the most common ones. You either have a profit orientated objective, or sales orientated, or you are not going to go into any competition. You are just happy with the status quo as it is, and you're not going to engage in any sort of price war with other competitors in the industry, because that's basically what the status quo situation is. That you are just going to follow the price leader in the industry, and in the motor industry, it's Toyota. So when some of the other brands, competitors to Toyota, bring out a similar product, they will price it similarly to what Toyota, as the price leader in the industry, offers. They don't want to engage in a price war, because I think they probably realize that they're not going to win that battle based on the market share that Toyota has in that particular industry. Another approach would obviously be to base your pricing on what they call or use a sales-orientated approach, where it's all about the volumes that you sell, or the rand value of the items that you sell. Some businesses also look at a percentage of a growth percentage in the market share. How much have they grown their market share as opposed to what it was previously? These are all different approach that is linked to number of units sold. I'm not sure how often you visit the business pages of publications, newspapers, and websites, but usually when these kind of statistics about the performance of companies in a particular industry is published, and let's stay on the topic of vehicles, for instance, it's always published, and it always indicates to you how many units were sold per month, or per year, per 12-month cycle, as well as what the monetary value of that is. That usually indicates and can relate to the market share that particular brand has in a particular industry. Your profit-orientated approach, your objective is to make as much profit as possible. That's what this whole profit-orientated approach is about. You basically take all your incomes, or all your income, you deduct all your costs, and then also your taxes as well, which basically would equate to your net profit after your taxes, and you divide your total assets into that, so you can actually get a percentage of what your return on assets is. That's basically how the profit-orientated approach works. So in a nutshell, identifying our pricing objectives, where pricing objectives specifically refer to what you want to achieve as a business. Do you want to grow your market share by a certain percentage? Do you want to increase the number of items that you've sold? Do you want to just increase your revenue? Do you want to increase your profit? It will all be different objectives that can be or that businesses strive for. Right. Any questions at this stage? Anybody? More than welcome. Sorry, I've been babbling on as if nothing, if there's no tomorrow. I haven't heard much back from any of you. Are you still okay? Do you have any questions at this point? We're all good? I'm assuming yes. Thank you. Right, I just want to actually get to my textbook on page 200. We have a figure that I want to just check and see if the referencing to that particular page is the correct one. Yes, it actually is. Now, it's quite simple, people. we need to be looking at demand. In other words, what the customers are willing to pay, and then what we and our competitors and are offering. That's the difference between, well, we all know, and any of you who've done any form of business studies before know what the difference is between supply and demand. The demand, when we refer to pricing or to price, is basically determined by the customer, because the customer decides what they want to pay, what they can pay, what is available for them to pay. What we can offer is obviously the price that we have to or want to charge for our products, because that is what's going to help us achieve our objectives that we've set in the previous step. If we look at that, oops, I want to go to the next slide there. With that particular image, there's a similar image on page 200 in your textbooks, where you have your supply, which is it might on the surface appear to be sort of a purple line. I think it was just the image that didn't come through clearly. It's supposed to be a red line. That's the one running from the bottom left right to the top right of your screen, and then your demand is basically the one running from the top left to the bottom right, where the two variables that we've used are the units sold. In other words, the number of items that were sold on your left-hand side, and on the horizontal axle we have quantity. And how many I think I've confused myself now as well. On your horizontal axle, it's the number of units that were sold, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. And then on your vertical axle, the price per item. Right. Where these two lines cross, we basically have a market price, and that's the price that you want to sell the product at, because in a different illustration, you'll see that that's also what your break-even point is in a business. In other words, that's the point where your income and your expenses are equal. You're not making a profit, but you're also not making a loss. And that's why you want to determine what the market price should be, because that's the objective that most businesses have for a start. All right, we maybe have our objectives are not realistic, and therefore maybe we have are selling less than we anticipated. As long as we don't go beyond our break-even point, as long as we don't make a loss, what it costs us to make the product and to market the product, and up to the point that the consumer decides to buy it, we must at least equal that to what our income is. Now, another aspect regarding specifically demand and supply is that we need to look at elasticity of your demand or price. Your price elasticity refers to the fact that if there are any changes in demand, in price, then you will find that your demand is not necessarily going to be that great. Then we refer to an inelastic demand, and that's why I've used the example, the image of the rope. If you take a rope 1 meter long and you take it in your left hand and your right hand, you hold it over your head, and you stretch it so it actually is a horizontal point and a straight line between your left and your right hand. If you let go slightly on either one of the two sides, there's not any change in the length of that particular, or very small, depending on where you grip it, on the rope. So that's basically what an inelastic demand would refer to. If there's any change in the price, then you know what? There's not too much, if hardly any, change in your demand. So if there's a slight increase in price, the demand is not affected. The same number of people still buy. If there's a slight reduction in price, not necessarily a big change, then we refer to, as I said, an inelastic demand. An elastic demand is exactly what it says. It's the elastic. It actually gives and it comes back to its original shape. So it means that there's a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of elasticity in the market. So whenever there's a small change in the price, there's also a considerable change in demand. For instance, with you, if there's a reduction in prices of air tickets flying Cape Town, Johannesburg, if there's a significant reduction of say 20 to 30%, that's valid for a certain period. Would you say there would be an increase in prices or not? Because I mean, this is one of the industries where people are very conscious of the price. Do you think more people all of a sudden buy tickets? In other words, the demand will increase, or do you think that's probably going to be more of an inelastic demand where, you know what, it's still cheaper to drive? What do you think? What do you think how do you think the demand will change if there are a reduction in prices of flights? I think there will be an increase. Would then, do you think it still would qualify, Duncan, as a inelastic demand? Would there be a slight increase because that still qualifies as an inelastic demand, or would there be a significant increase? Or probably, if I can interrupt myself, it will probably depend on what the reduction in price is. The greater the reduction in price, I think the more elastic the demand will become, and the more significant and considerable the changes in the demand would be. Yes, without a doubt. I'm just reading through some of the chats as well. Dylan, I think it was it's very true that that's pretty much what a trolley of food costs you nowadays. I can remember I use my my Cape consumer card to do my weekly shopping. It's just an outing on a Friday afternoon, just before we get into weekend mode. Either both my sons or at least one of them accompany me, and we work off a list. And to be honest with you, if you ask me if I worked off a list 2 years ago, the answer would probably be no. I had in mind what we needed, but there were a bit of flexibility in your budget. I think there's obviously, and I'm not even sure if the increase in fuel prices from the start of last month actually has impacted yet on the cost of products that we see on our shelves. That's probably still going to happen. But it is, a trolley of groceries have become very, very expensive. I can remember that usually when you open your apply for a Cape consumer card, basically where you buy everything, you swipe the card, there's no money exchanged. You just pay your monthly amount like you would pay off a bond or an installment on a vehicle. But they allow you a budget amount within which you can purchase. Okay, so if your budget have been approved for 8,000 Rand a month, then obviously you can only buy 8,000 Rand a month on the card, and then you still have to pay the 8,000 Rand back at the end of the month, and it opens again, and you can buy 8,000 Rand next month again. Whatever you don't use is not carried over, but the fact is that you will save because you've bought less, or just manage your purchases better. It works for me because I don't have to carry cash or cards, whatever, and I know that particular card I only use for the household purchases, our consumable goods that we use on a weekly basis. That is significantly, I think, in the last 5 years, every 2 years, we've increased or applied for an increase on the budget, because they're not going to offer you one. You need to obviously qualify for an increase and apply for it, because it was just not possible. Where you were under budget most of the time, initially, I was 5 years ago, definitely over budget. Almost a week before the end of the month, you're over budget already, or you've reached your limit already. So it to me was a clear indication as well. I'm not sure, there's not too many of you out there who are responsible for households, but I'm pretty sure that staying under your parents' roof, they make it clear to you that things are expensive. Are you willing to share with me changes that has happened in your households, where maybe you feel, you definitely know when you go shopping that you are more cautious of what to purchase and what the prices of certain items are. How have you experienced the significant increase in the cost of living personally in the last number of years? And I think especially now in the last 2 years, I would say. Anybody? Any personal experiences that you are prepared to, because you're under no obligation to do it, because it's personal. But yeah, how have you experienced the increase in cost of living, or have you experienced it, and to what extent have you experienced it? Anybody? Or are you much like some people who say he hasn't really felt the impact of the increase in prices of petrol, because he always just fills up with 200 Rand at a time? Yeah, okay, I understand that. You probably, but you're getting less for the 200 Rand. But then they also say there are some items that some people believe that regardless of what the price is, it would still be a bargain. Now that we're getting closer to the weekend, I think some of you are already looking at your weekend budgets, and probably stock up. Hopefully, we're not going to go into some form of harder lockdown very soon. Although the numbers are picking up, and it doesn't look good at this point. I think for the first time in a number of months and weeks, the daily rate has gone beyond 3,000. I think 3,200 people were infected yesterday. But no, that was to be expected. So again, yeah, let's repeat what most people are saying and asking us: social distance, wear your mask, and sanitize. That's the three things that we know cannot change the whole pandemic around, but it can actually at least stall it for a while, because we are going to get another wave. But no, people, I think in general, prices of household goods have really increased significantly in the last number of years, and people are feeling the brunt, especially in the context of what the global economy is experiencing at the moment. When a demand is elastic, It could be because I've only one organization running the show. In other words, a monopoly as a business structure existing in a particular industry. There's no substitutes. Then obviously they determine the price of the product, and it's obviously if it's something you need, that's what you'll pay. I think we've at too many occasions we've used Eskom as an example, but that pretty much is what it is. We complain about the increase in electricity rates, but then we all know that we have no alternatives. We can save and be more cautious on of how we use it, but at the end of the day, the cost of a particular unit of electricity is going to increase because there's no substitute and there's a complete total monopoly in that particular industry. Usually also when there's no response from the customers to a small price increase, we've already determined that, and the customers are also sometimes comfortable with the product, and because of that, if there's increases in price, they stay with it. It's okay. They get to a point, obviously, if it goes beyond a certain ceiling, then, or reached a certain ceiling, that they are like, all right, maybe we just need to, maybe we can do without this product. I definitely realized over the last number of years there are some items that you know what, if you haven't bought it for a while, then actually you don't, after a while you don't miss it anymore. And then obviously there are some customers who become so loyal to a particular brand or product that they will always keep on, they will find a reason to justify the higher price and still continue to purchase that particular product. Costs, obviously, is we've determined right at the start already that what something costs, what it costs you to produce a product, has a great impact on what you can charge for it, because you want to charge more than than what it would cost you to produce. Otherwise, what's the point of being in business? Otherwise, you're just passing the time. Variable cost and fixed cost needs to be differentiated between the two. Fixed cost are those expenses that remain unchanged, regardless if there's an increase in demand. If you are producing more, if you are selling more, these expenses remain exactly the same. That would be, for instance, maybe your rent that you pay every month, as opposed to variable cost that changes as you produce more or produce less. It's determined by the amount of products or services that is manufactured. So in other words, maybe you need extra staff if you're increasing your production, so there's a cost to pay for that extra individual in the form of a salary or a fee. In general, however, if it's not, it should be common sense. Your total revenue, all the money that you make from the sales, and deducting the cost, fixed cost plus your variable cost, will equate to your profit. Or if there really is more than a green, it will be a loss. I think we know that. It's straightforward and simple, but obviously it is very important for us to keep the cost of an item in consideration when we sit down to determine what would be the best price to sell our product at. Any questions, anybody at this stage? What are we doing for time? We've got about 10 minutes to go. We all still good? The slow go on this Friday morning. You can't be tired. What have you done this week, huh, students?
Good. So we're just listening.
You're listening, sitting back and relaxing. I'm pretty sure there's
in bed.
lying in bed. Yeah, yeah, just wonderful. Another day in paradise,
Just
right?
waiting for the finals to start.
It's fine. I wish I had that opportunity. I'm not feeling great today. As a matter of fact, I've been up the whole night with a stomach bug, which I think I picked up. It's a sort of a recurring bug. I didn't. When I got to work this morning, I realized for the first time, oh yeah, it's the middle of May almost, because in 1992 I went with a cricket team to India and I picked up a bug there. Um, and it happens to most people who visit India for the first time. And for a number of years after that, nothing happened, and all of a sudden, boom! It was second week in May. I got this bug, and every May since then, it's probably been the last, even easily 20 years. Every May that bug resurfaces, and I think that came to visit last night. So I haven't had that much sleep. But yeah, there were too many things to do on campus, so I came in anyway. But I think we all tired. It's that time of the semester. It's at that time of year. A lot of people are talking about almost like post-COVID or post-lockdown syndrome, where people are are just tired in general, because it's almost as if the bad news that they receive every day is more than the good news, and it's getting to all of us. But at the end of the day, there's always good in any situation. I think from the statistics that I've shared this morning, it was quite clear about Cape Town. It's quite clear that people, by default, having been retrenched, losing their jobs, had to find a way, have been creative, started businesses. The opportunities are definitely out there. I think I usually use, for me, a yardstick of what's happening in a particular area is I'm rather observant when I drive through any area, new area, or one that I am familiar with. When I see construction sites and the activities and the cranes, then I know, you know what, something's boiling, something's cooking. So the business is still alive, and there's a lot of opportunities out there. I think we sometimes just don't. We sometimes miss it, or we're sometimes not. The timing is probably not right, and we're not ready for it yet. Yeah, Andre. Yeah. Well, I think that's something that's been very interesting. Another fact, while we're talking about the shopping habits of our consumers, as Andre said in his chat, is that strangely enough, the latest trend is that where people have traditionally in the past gone to maybe monthly and or twice during a month go for a shopping outing that is that buys a larger number of goods. People are visiting the shops more frequently nowadays, and they're buying smaller quantities of products, but more regularly. I'm not sure if it's almost but it is. I've read some articles that reflect that is the current trend, consumer trend when it comes to buying daily household goods. I'm going to finish off. We're not going to go through all 8 steps today, but I'm going to finish off with this particular one. Hopefully, I'll be able to finish. Actually, I don't think I will be able to finish. So you know what? I'm actually not going to start, because there's quite a lot of detail on this page, although it doesn't look like it. But there are different methods that we can use now and apply to determine an approximate price. The 3 main ones are customer value methods, cost-based methods, and competition-based methods. There's too much information and too many different methods that we have to differentiate. So I'm not going to start with this because that actually can wait till Monday. Otherwise, we'll have to repeat ourselves on Monday anyway. At this point, as I said, yeah, I'm not going to start with new work and new slides. Can I get any feedback from you? Anybody, any concerns still at this stage? Because we are sort of a week away, just longer than a week away from, yeah, as a matter of fact, next Friday, you are submitting your assignments. Anybody that wants me to spend time maybe on Monday related to your assignments? Any questions, any concerns that you have about your assignments at the moment? Should I maybe on Monday just spend a few minutes and just make sure that everybody knows where to submit the assignments and the process that they have to go through to upload those assignments? All good? You can actually still submit next Friday, but don't leave it till next Friday. But at the end of the day, also don't ask me for any assistance next Friday this time round, because then it's too late. If you're unsure about your submissions of your assignments, please rather ask sooner than later. Any questions, anybody? And if you were wondering if I've completed marking your test from Tuesday, no, I haven't completed it because it's a time-consuming exercise, and I'm working. I've got 2 groups, and I'm working through 2 groups just to keep sane. But the marking would be completed by Monday, and the moderation will take probably another day. So we'll have our results very soon. But yeah, that's the status update on that. Anything else, everybody? Are you ready to go into weekend? You were ready yesterday already, I think. Right, if nobody has anything to add, thanks for today. Thanks for this week. Like I always share with you on a Friday, stay safe, enjoy yourself, and follow those 3 rules that we know we have to make sure that we stay safe and healthy. Okay. Thanks very much, everybody. I'll stay online for another minute or so before I'll stop the recording, but I'll stay online for another minute or so if there's anybody who wants to ask any questions.